Hello fans and friends across the universe. Welcome to my YouTube channel From Me to You. My name's Keir Smith. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about the problem, or rather my problem with Paul McCartney's album from 1989, Flowers in the Dirt. Upon its release in June 1989, Flowers in the Dirt was a #1 album in the UK, only number 21 in the US, but reviews for the album were largely positive. And I've seen this album ranked high, top 5 or better in a lot of McCartney fans' lists when talking about what his best album might be. It seems it's a much loved McCartney album. But I've always thought the album was overrated. I've seen and read so many reviews that talk about the hype surrounding the album. The fact he was writing with Elvis Costello and rehearsing with the new band, announcing a world tour that would feature plenty of Beatles songs, Paul's first tour in nearly a decade. Paul was back. And Flowers in the Dirt is often referred to as Paul's comeback album, a return to form, especially with it being his first studio release after the much maligned Press to Play album. But I think Flowers in the Dirt is carried by the hype around the album. I think it's inconsistent and disjointed. Don't get me wrong, when the album's good, it's very good, but when it's not, it's forgettable. And we all know that McCartney likes to be eclectic with his song choices when compiling his albums. I always think he'd be bored with a project or an album if it stayed in one place. So we're used to getting track listings and songs that leap from one genre to the next. For example, Ballroom Dancing to The Pound is Sinking to Wanderlust on the Tug of War album, and House of Wax to The End of the End to Nod Your Head on Memory Almost Full. And I like that. And I really like those two albums. But for me, Flowers in the Dirt doesn't hang well together as an album. I think that stylistically, the songs are so different from each other that their separateness is emphasised more so. Paul worked with 4 different producers on this album, as well as producing himself, but I don't hear this benefiting the material on this album as a cohesive body of work. And unsurprisingly, I think it's overproduced, it's too fussy, it's been meticulously designed. So now I'll go through the 12 songs that make up the original LP, and I'll start with the highlights and work my way down to my least favourites. We'll start with My Brave Face, which was the lead-off single for the album. It's the first song on the album, and it's my favourite song on the album. It's an absolute joy. It saw the return of Paul's Hofner bass, and it has that Beatlesque guitar sound, and you can hear Elvis Costello's influence in the writing. Paul crams the lyrics in brilliantly. I've been trying to compose a baby, will you please come home, note meant for you. As I clear away another untouched TV dinner from the table I laid for 2. Great lyrics, and it's one of my favourite vocals from Paul too. A super bridge going into the chorus, 10 out of 10, magnificent. And I love We Got Married. I really like those brisk acoustic guitars on the opening, and then the song takes a rock-oriented turn. Enter David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. His excellent guitar work gives the song an added dimension, and I love that lyric. I love the things that happen when we start to discover who we are and what we're living for. And on the outro too, it's not just a loving machine. It doesn't work out if you don't work at it, and that trumpet solo comes in. It's a fine song and a big favourite of mine. And Put It There, which was the 4th and final single released from the album, and this is a lovely acoustic melody with a warm sentiment, short and sweet, effortlessly brilliant, and a really good song. That Day Is Done, which has grown on me bit by bit through the years to the point where it's become a big favourite, another one written with Elvis Costello. A lovely melody and wonderful lyrics, and Paul really soars into that middle 8 with some emotionally packed singing. And with the song being called That Day Is Done, and with the subject matter being about death, there is a finality about this song, and I often thought it could and maybe should have closed the album. So they're my favourites from the album. No complaints there, a fine quartet of songs that I could not live without. So on to the next set of songs, the next tier down if you like, starting with Figure of 8, which was the 3rd single released from the album, and this is a snappy, up-tempo, catchy rock song. Good riff, and Paul showcases his obvious talents with an interesting vocal range. On to this one, which was the second single released from the album, and this is a good song. Bright acoustics, good vocal, nice harmonies, and I really like that lyric. Did I ever touch you on the cheek, say that you were mine, thank you for the smile. It's got a really strong, memorable chorus, and I do like that frantic ending. It's good stuff. And I'll put Motor of Love in this tier because I do like it. I mean, the production is certainly questionable. It's swamped in 80s affectations. I often say that this is Paul's Purple Rain. It's got that slow drum beat, very atmospheric, and a slow burning, epic feel to it. And I do like the romanticism and the vulnerability shown in the lyrics. I can't get over your love, no matter how hard life seems. There's a light in my dreams, thanks to you. But admittedly, that bit, I don't want anything from you. Turn on your motor of love, motor of love, motor of love. Heavenly Father, look down from above. It's a bit cringeworthy, a bit syrupy, but it's an impassioned vocal. And I really like it when that guitar breaks through at the end. It's very well played. On to the next tier down then, and we'll start with Distractions, which is a nice tune with rich Baroque instrumentation, but it's a subtle beauty and it's stretched out here at nearly 5 minutes long. But I always find myself drifting off when I'm listening to it, being distracted if you will. But I do think it could have benefited from being edited down a little bit. On to How Many People, and this is a nice, light, reggae influenced song. I like the part when it shifts to those rock chords. It's nice enough, but not great material. And on to the bottom tier of songs. 3 songs, 25% of the album. And we'll start with Rough Ride, and this is a funky little jam. It's decent, but again, it's stretched out at nearly 5 minutes, and frankly, it outstays its welcome for me. On to You Want Her Too, which is a duet and a co-write with Elvis Costello, and I love both artists here, so I suppose this is nice to have. And the writing's amusing, hearing the two of them playfully taking swipes at one another's personas. But it's a bit loud and bombastic for me, and what's with that big brass band at the end? But it's no Mac and Jack, give me The Girl Is Mine any day. Or Ebony and Ivory for that matter. Which leaves Don't Be Careless Love, the last of the 4 co-writes with Elvis Costello here, and I've always thought that this was mawkish. I do like that bit where it shifts tempo and Paul sings Saw Your Face in the Morning Paper, but it's got that R&B gospel feel to it, and I don't like that. So there are my feelings on the songs from the album, and I want to say at this point, this isn't a bad album. But the quality of song varies greatly, and I can never fully settle into this album. Because when I listen to an album, I like to play the full album and enjoy it as a whole experience. But with Flowers in the Dirt, I often find myself going, track 1, My Brave Face, track 5, We Got Married, track 6, Put It There, track 10, That Day Is Done, track 12, Motor of Love. I tell you, I'm a sucker for that song. Like I've said, it feels disjointed to me. The songs don't flow, partly due to the fact that the productions of each song are very different. And I think that Paul was too conscious of the album not being well received, and so he threw a bit of everything at it, covering as many bases as possible. And what I get or take from the album is something that's Paul, it's still Paul, unmistakably so. But I think it's a case of too many cooks spoil the broth here. And as a result, it's one of my least favourite albums of his as a cohesive body of work. There's great songs, there's good songs, there's some average songs, and there's some not so good songs. And I always thought that this album could have been edited down to a 10-track album, and I would have knocked off Rough Ride and Don't Be Careless Love. But anyway, I do go on. Hopefully I've displayed the problem, or my problem, with Flowers in the Dirt. I'd love to know your thoughts on this album. What's your favourite song on the album? But more importantly, what do you think of the rest of the songs that make up the album? because the 4 singles speak for themselves, I think. Whatever you think, please leave your comments below. Please give the video the thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel. There'll be lots more to come. Thanks as always for watching. See you next time.